We've got the scoop on Apple's new products coming in 2024. Some pretty exciting stuff. Let's check it out.
Welcome to the Apple Vision podcast. I mean the all future podcast.
That's
Sorry,
it.
We talk about Apple Vision a lot on this podcast, but we talk about all things tech as well throughout the week. So be sure to subscribe if you enjoy hearing us talk about it.
And speaking of other tech, we have new Apple products coming in 2024. Some things people have been asking for, some things to get excited about. Some people might not even know what these things are or if they need them. What's going on?
Well, first is one really interesting one, which is an upgraded HomePod. Apple has had an interesting history with the HomePod, and I think it's a product that there's probably a lot of Apple fans and Apple users that don't even use a HomePod whatsoever. And then there's some people like me who have multiple in their house. Even though I understand Siri is not as good as other voice assistants, it's just the Apple ecosystem, and really AirPlay is honestly my favorite feature of it. But can you give us a brief history on this product?
Sure. So Apple realizes they need to be in the smart home space, and kind of in classic Apple fashion, they let it develop a little, and then they decide to enter it. They enter it with something that is not really a smart home device, I would say. It is a speaker first, the original HomePod. And they definitely marketed it as that, as a smart speaker system, not a smart home system. Mm-hmm. It comes out in 2021. Apple doesn't reveal individual product sales. They kind of lump things together into categories, so who knows how well it's sold. Well enough that I know that it's around and people had it, and Apple kind of kept developing and getting updates for it. They eventually discontinued the first version of it. And I'm sorry, I think I just said it came out in 2021. That's when they discontinued the first version, actually. Okay. Yeah, so the first one's out. Before that, it gets discontinued in 2021.
And the HomePod Mini had already been out by then.
Right, yes. The HomePod Mini is out, and then they discontinue the full-size one. The HomePod Mini is kind of the default only HomePod you can get at that point, which is much closer to a traditional kind of smart home integration device. It's cheaper, it's smaller, it's got some speakers on it. It sounds okay, but it's not going to blow anyone away. Then in 2023, they come out with a full-size HomePod Gen 2 with some improved chips inside, some better technology on it. So now that's the lineup right now. You can get the small HomePod Mini for $100, I think it's $99, or the full-size HomePod, which is $299, I believe.
Yeah, and of course, these don't have a screen. It has a little flashing Siri thing on the top, and then touch buttons for just pausing or for turning volume up and down. But that's all that this has, and it looks like Apple is going to be trying to massively improve this potentially by adding a screen.
Right. The HomePod really only functions via voice interface for the most part. Like you said, you can pause songs, skip songs, some kind of basic. You can hold it down to not say Siri first. There's some really basic interactions with it. It is probably limiting its value as a smart home interface because of that. Mm-hmm. And if you look at every other big competitors to it, from Google and Amazon, they offer a version with a screen.
Yeah.
So you're a HomePod guy. I'm a HomePod guy. Would you want one with a screen? Do you feel like you're missing out because you don't have that screen?
Yeah, sometimes it would be nice to just have a little dialogue showing me what's playing, because you're still interfacing with your phone in that sense if you want to see what the song is, or you have to ask what the song is. Then it lowers the volume, kind of interrupts your song and explains what the song is and who it's by, versus just looking at a screen. It would be a lot better than pulling out my phone, I think. So that's my first thought, but there's plenty of other use cases. There's ones that have cameras, so you could have a built-in video chat device for someone who doesn't want to have to, again, have their phone out, and it can just be dedicated for that. But do you have a screen usage case?
Yeah, millions of them. And it's interesting that as the musician guy, you're like, oh, I want to be able to control the songs. I'm like, that's way down on my list of the reasons I want that screen for, right?
I always forget about that.
Yeah. Most things that I want to do in my home, I don't really need to talk to a thing to do that, right? I want to change the temperature. I want to see who's on the security camera, right? I want to take a glance and see what the weather is that day. There's a lot of things that an always-on kind of device that is giving me general information about my home or my environment would be helpful.
Yeah.
Instead of having to always talk, always interact with the voice assist on it. Apple is definitely, I think, missing out on a huge segment of smart home buyers by not having a screen integration built.
Yeah, I've kind of considered actually having like an iPad mini or something dedicated for home controls, and so I didn't even think about that. That makes total sense.
And this rumor's been out for probably a couple of years at this point. I guess it's finally getting closer and closer to fruition. But I think this is definitely something Apple needs to make if they want to stay in the smart home environment and competition.
Yeah, so aside from the Apple Vision Home or whatever they're going to call it, I could picture HomePod Vision for sure.
HomePod Vision's a good marketing term.
Yeah.
We'll see. HomePod Vision Ultra.
They always like using the same terms from their other products. So I could definitely see that coming, and it's kind of like a mix of an iPad but a home speaker that's dedicated and made for all of that smart home stuff, which is expanding now with Matter, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, now that supposedly the open source like smart home system that everyone's kind of signed up for to varying degrees of success, but yeah, so like once that's around and integrated and everything, this is a no-brainer product for Apple to make for me.
But in any case, with that coming, Apple is also rumored to be working on a smart ring, which we've seen Oura rings have gotten pretty popular. I know a few people that genuinely use them all the time and like it because it's tracking a lot of health things and whatnot, but it's in a ring as opposed to a watch. But what is Apple's position on that?
So there's a patent. So the Apple thought enough about it to tell the U.S. government they're making this thing. It seems like maybe the project is a little stalled. It's going different directions, so maybe it wouldn't come out and didn't leave early development. But I think as Apple looks toward the future, and I think it's pretty clear at this point that Apple sees the future as wearables. Between the watch, the Apple Vision, what's another thing you can wear? A ring. And I think what Apple's probably waiting for is better ways to integrate this into an Apple ecosystem. Because right now, it will essentially have the sensors that the watch already has on it, but in a ring, which, like you said, some people may prefer that form factor. But what Apple's probably thinking is, how do I get a guy who has a watch to also buy the ring, right?
Yeah.
What else can I integrate into that? Some kind of, NFC tech, all these kind of things, that positional tech. Maybe it can integrate with the Vision Pro to get better awareness of your hand locations, or all kind of things like that. So I think that's probably what Apple really wants is, how does this complement our ecosystem?
Samsung announced their own Galaxy Ring at CES. So that could be potentially, if proven out on Samsung's side and getting popular amongst Samsung people, could be something that Apple dives into. But yeah, you're very right. They're going to have to figure out a reason for you to still buy an Apple Watch and buy this ring. It can't just replace it, or it has to be more expensive or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll come up with a way. Somehow they got us to get phones and watches and iPads and Macs, so which have a lot of overlapping, but each one is doing one thing just a little bit better, right? And that's what I think they need. What's that one thing a ring can do a little bit better that a watch can't?
Yeah. I think one thing might be sleep tracking. I sleep with my Apple Watch for sleep tracking, but a lot of people don't want to, or that's when they want to charge their watch or things like that. So having a ring that also lasts a long time as opposed to it lasting only 24 hours or not less than that with an Apple Watch, that might be a big one, and other health things like that the watch is just a little bulky for.
Sure. I mean that's the exact thing, right? The watch is too big for some people, uncomfortable, all these kind of things. And obviously if they make a Apple ring, I'll think about buying it. Because I'm a sucker.
So what other products are coming out? Those are the main ones I think that are like new and exciting, because we've already gotten Apple Vision. We know that Apple Vision version 2 is potentially 18 months away. So what else are they working on?
Kind of the normal Apple refresh cycle, which with maybe some more exciting additions to them. iPad's probably the biggest ones, particularly the iPad Pros. iPads known for having nice displays, especially in the Pros. What they don't have is an OLED display. So it's rumored they're finally going to make an OLED display iPad Pro, and thinking about altering the form factor of it slightly on the Pros. A thing people have asked for a lot is a camera in landscape mode. And I could see this. And if Apple, since the initial inception of the iPad, has always kind of thought of it as a portrait-oriented device. The original iPad, its keyboard actually only worked with the iPad vertical. It wasn't sideways. It was a vertical dock for it, which was kind of crazy. But that was Apple's kind of initial thinking on it. Now with smart keyboard and things Apple make now, they clearly want it as more of a hybrid laptop situation. They probably see that's how people are really using it, as more of a hybrid laptop. Makes more sense to have the cameras on top. So cameras, improved display, and probably some kind of improved keyboard for it, particularly in the trackpad portion of the keyboard, making that a little larger, making that better to interact with. And again, transitioning it more to that hybrid kind of device.
Yeah, it's definitely awkward. I've been on calls where I'm using the keyboard, and so I have it in landscape, and then my camera's over here, and then I'm looking at them over here, and it's just always your eyes are in a weird spot there. So that definitely will make sense because it's much more like their laptops, and this is a 13-inch device. You know, they're, I guess, a little bit bigger because that's the corner to corner of the screen. But yeah, supposedly they're going to make it a little bit bigger as well, right, with the screen. I wonder if that's going to be noticeable or just like a slight change.
A little eaten into the bezels, really.
Yeah.
And you know, and there has been rumors about a 14-inch iPad Pro for a year or two now. Like, so there's have been rumors about making the iPad bigger. Again, I think Apple thinks of it kind of as a hybrid device now in a lot of ways, especially the Pro model. And if you look at how Stage Manager and things like that, you can kind of dock an iPad now, and it acts a lot like a Mac. If you have it docked with a keyboard and monitor, there's not a lot of difference, right? Like you would definitely notice if you use a Mac a lot, but if you were kind of just going into it blind and never experienced computing, you'd be like, oh, this is a computer, right? Like you wouldn't really notice anything different about it. That's has always seemed to be Apple's roadmap, is the eventual combination of the iPad OS system with Mac OS, and making kind of this perfect all-in-one tablet device that can dock and be a computer.
So that's on the Pro side, but apparently the iPad Air is expected to also get kind of a big update. I think the iPad Pro is going to get the M3 chip. The iPad Air is going to get the M2 chip, which, I mean, is still going to be plenty.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's what's in like a lot of people's Mac. That's better than what's in most people's MacBooks right now, probably.
And it's supposed to get a new rear camera bump. I'm not entirely sure if it's just the design of it or new cameras. And then Wi-Fi 6E support and Bluetooth 5.3.
Which is kind of what you would just keeping up with technology kind of stuff, right? Like these aren't mind-blowing things, but if Apple wants to stay in the game with the iPads, which to keep it relevant, I think Apple has to just keep pushing with just the standard tech of the day, right?
And then on potentially the more boring side, apparently the MacBook Air is expected to get some updates with the chip.
Cool.
13-inch and 15-inch is going to get the M2 chip with faster performance, hardware, accelerated ray tracing for improved graphics rendering in games, which to me raises the question, Apple always features games, and I get it from a processor perspective,
Sure.
But how many people are looking at this and like, oh, I need that for my gaming?
Gotta be no one, right? Like, gotta be almost zero. I think Apple notoriously throughout the history of computer-based gaming, I'd say going into the late 90s on, has been if you're a gamer, you don't buy a Mac, right? Like it's just kind of how it has always been. Cool, it's neat that they put these technologies on there. Certainly many amazing video games run on Mac. All these different kind of integrations they're doing. Now people can, I don't want to say hack it, but use these kind of convoluted methods to get things like, the new Spider-Man game running on Macs, things like that. I don't think they sell many more MacBooks because of that. I think it's almost like an added on kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think what's more interesting on the improved side for the GPU side of the chip is its benefit to AI and things like that, not necessarily traditional gaming.
Yeah. So which of these products are you most excited for? If you had to pick one today, and all of these were coming out,
right,
what would you get?
I mean, okay, well, the practical side of me wants to say an improved iPad Pro. I'm an iPad Pro guy. I use an iPad Pro all the time, every day. I really would want the HomePod with a screen, though. Like, that seems to be the cooler, as the part of my brain that just wants newer, flashier things, whatever that like lizard brain urge is. I want a HomePod with a screen. Yeah. Right. Like and it's when your buddies come over and you get that serotonin bump when they're like, oh, is that new HomePod with a screen, right? And you're like, it sure is, man. Now I can control the temperature of my house with a sliding thing instead of walking 10 feet to the thermostat. That's what I kind of want. And I'm sure that's what Apple's kind of banking on is how refined can we make this thing so it has this kind of wow factor that people are going to want to buy it and put in their homes.
Yeah, I would definitely get the HomePod Vision as well.
Also, I'm going to get the HomePod Vision Ultra so I can have the better one. Impress more of my friends.